All right, welcome back, everyone. We're here with candidates for Senate District 10. We're going to follow the same format: opening statements, question and answer, closing statements. We predetermined the order. Allyn Meyers, Republican, will have the first opportunity for opening statement. Then we'll go to Walter Felag, Democrat. And Mr. Meyers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Off you go.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event and Senator Felag for participating. My name is Allyn Meyers. I live in Tiverton, Rhode Island with my wife of 32 years, Laurie. I have a daughter who is a registered nurse at a Rhode Island hospital and grandson who's a college student. I own a business for 23 years where I'm a network engineer and a systems analyst. I've also taught high school for 8 years. And I was also in the human services field for 10 years as a counselor. And I was also, during that period, the 5-time president of the AFSCME local union.
Thank you. Mr. Felag.
Good evening. My name is Walter S. Felag Jr. And for the past 20 years, I've had the distinct honor of serving as a state senator for this particular District 10. During that time, I've always tried to find practical solutions for the complex issues that exist. I am a computer software engineer by trade, and my wife and I own a small business in Barrington. I have 2 boys, Jake and Zeke, and I'm the vice chair of the Senate Finance Committee and also the chairman of the Veterans Affairs and Special Legislation Committee.
Thank you. All right, question and answer format. Mr. Meyers, we begin with you. And this will sound familiar. Why are you a better choice for District 10 than your opponent?
Well, it seems that we have pretty similar backgrounds, it seems. And it's funny, a little thing I just realized that one of the software companies that he works for wrote software for the hardware that I built back in the 80s when Navy contracts is great. But I have a good amount of skills in various things that I believe that would help the General Assembly. I believe the General Assembly, as we see it, is broken. We see that the goal of the General Assembly is to take the wants and the needs and the concerns of people and bring them up to the General Assembly and fight and advocate for their people in their districts. I don't think we see that much anymore. We have a supermajority now that is one-sided. There is no discussion. There is no real debate of any substance. We have, it seems like there is an air of activism that has seeped into our General Assembly, and the wants and the needs of the people are not being taken care of. Our roads are terrible. Our schools are 45th in the nation. We just need better leadership.
Mr. Felag.
This is the first time I'm meeting my opponent, so I don't know what kind of grudge he may have against me other than the fact that he's running for office. But over the years, I've worked diligently on behalf of my constituents. I have an open mind on issues, and I'm willing to listen and learn from my constituents. And probably the most important aspect of my candidacy is that I'm working for you. I try to represent all the people within the district. When I go out in my door-to-door campaign, I go to all the houses. I don't just go to Democratic houses or unaffiliated. I go to Republican houses because I like to hear the perspective of people within my district. I think it's important that the most important aspect we've done this year is to eliminate the property taxes on cars. That's amounted to about $1.4 million for Bristol, 1.1 for Tiverton, and 1 million for the town of Warren. So we're providing relief to our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question, Mr. Felag, begins with you. Do you think the state should pay for reproductive health care in Medicaid insurance and for state employees?
Well, that's a new issue that's really come to the forefront. I believe that all life is precious, but by the same token, the Act of 2019 has made it such that women have their rights. And so it's important that we look at this insurance parity bill and look at its assistance for our low-income women and minorities. So I'm going to have an open mind on this. I believe the important aspect here is that the governor has stated that he's going to put it in as a budget article. And because of the fact that it's going to be a budget article, that means it may take 2 paths. One path it's going to take is an individual bill going before the Judiciary Committee. The second aspect is going before the Finance Committee as a budget article, which means that the House and the Senate committees are going to hear that, flesh it out, ask the various questions, hope we get proper responses from our low and income people to state why they need this particular bill. And the important aspect here is to remember that because it's going to be in the governor's budget, there may be only one vote, and that vote may be at the final budget in June. So we're going to have about 8 months to flesh this whole out.
Mr. Meyers.
Well, as I believe that both Senator Felag and I are both on the same side of being pro-life. We both endorsed pro-life candidates. So with regards to Medicare and Medicaid, both are overstressed in our country right now. As I walk door to door and talk to the people in the district, over 6,000 houses in the last 3 months, speaking to people, many seniors that we have in our districts. One of the concerns they have is Medicare and Medicaid not paying for things like dentures, glasses, and various things that they need. And we have such a budget shortfall on those kind of things. Expanding this out to another, it's really just going to overstress the system.
All right, thank you. Mr. Meyers, next question with you. What type of additional regulations, if any, do you think are needed on guns and munitions in Rhode Island?
Well, the recent 3 gun bills that passed, I believe, are unconstitutional. I believe that we're going to find that a federal court will probably overturn these things, as they've done 3 days before the vote that we took in the state in California, New Jersey, and New York. The Bruin case made that very clear. And so what's going to happen is we're wasting legislative time talking about certain things. We should be more concentrating on gun crime. And the gun crime is criminals, people who are criminals that use guns in acts of violence. They should not be in a revolving turnstile from our Attorney General office. We should be concentrating on prosecuting the cases that are there instead of turning around and taking guns from law-abiding citizens and worrying about, actually, these last 3 laws, all they did was attack law-abiding citizens. They really had nothing to do with criminals. Criminals are going to do what they do. They don't follow the law.
Mr. Felag.
Well, basically, I support common sense gun legislation and do support the Second Amendment. And I believe that the bills that we've passed the past couple of years have not infringed on that aspect that I voted on. It would be banning of the ghost guns. It would be the creating of the red flag law that keeps firearms out of those who pose a danger to others and potentially to themselves, and also increasing the age from 18 to 21 and preventing domestic abusers from possessing firearms. We have to vet these out, but more importantly is the language within these bills. And so it's imperative that we do that.
Yes, please.
The red flag laws, for the most part, are unconstitutional because there's due process institutions. The issue with the raising of the gun from 18 to 21, that is going to definitely be found unconstitutional. That takes away hunting for younger people. I mean, if you're 18 years old and you're in the military and you can handle a gun and you can go overseas and fight for this country, you should be able to hunt. You should be able to shoot recreationally without having to have a parent standing by you to do that. And they're just not going to be found constitutional. It's a waste of time.
Thank you. Mr. Felag, next question for you. What role should state government play in protecting and promoting natural resources?
What do you mean natural resources?
The environment.
The environment? Oh, I think we have to take an active role in the environment because of the fact of climate change. We've passed the Act on Climate in Rhode Island to the path of 100% renewable energy by 2033. This is a goal in which I support the clean energy reduction of the carbon emissions and the measure to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. Also, we've supported the creation of the Ocean State Climate Adoption Resiliency Fund that will enable the cities, towns, and grants to provide them with grants to restore the proper climate resistance. We see all around us, from the wildfires in the west, the flooding in Kentucky, tornadoes, and recently hurricanes in the Florida coast, the importance of climate change. More importantly, our Arctic and our Antarctic regions are the most vulnerable in the fact that the impact here is on rising sea levels and water temperature, increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather conditions, catastrophic droughts and floods, accelerated ocean. And so it's so important that we get this under control.
We can all agree that we want to breathe clean air, we want clean water. The forestry bill that we was talking about, we really need to spend more time and more money in cleaning out our forests. All the dead wood is a real cause of most of those forest fires. And it has been in the West too. Not spending money to take care of forest control in the West is reason why we've had these wildfires. We need to do the same here. Over in the western part of the state there, they have a lot of issues with dead wood being there, causing fires and that kind of thing. But we have, people don't realize that Rhode Island is considered the greenest state in the country per capita. We create less carbon dioxide per capita than any other state in the entire country. We use probably, even though we use natural gas for production of electricity right now, we are still, with the carbon dioxide, the cleanest in the state, I mean, in the country. We have a lot of laws that have been passed in the last year, especially the Act on Climate, that actually will hurt people in the end. We have generation of electricity. We have a lot of electricity that is being produced and sold to us from other states. The price is going up 50% this month. As I walked and canvassed the neighborhoods and talked to the people there, the seniors, the people in fixed incomes, they're not ready for this. It should be metered out, and a parallel system of using these green systems of wind and solar should be put along the side. We have our existing things until we can actually have something we can all afford.
Thank you. Mr. Meyers,
Yeah.
next question to you. We're going to switch over to education as a topic. What are your thoughts about the current school funding formula?
We spend, I believe it's about $19,000 a pupil in Rhode Island right now, and which is more expensive than private school. I think that if we had maybe school vouchers or the money following the child, we would find a good system of private schools that would open up. We would see the public schools in a system that they would have to compete for those tax dollars, and we would see a lot of systems. I talk to people who are in school committees, and they say, no kidding, defund us and we'll fix it. It's silly, but that's what they say. And so I don't believe that the amount of money that we're spending on per student is giving us a return. We're 45th in the country. This is New England. We are the home of many Ivy League schools, and what we're doing right now is just not working in our state. Thank you.
Yes, I voted for this particular act maybe 10, 11 years ago, and we made it a priority in the state budget, where we probably placed around 30 million every year into the budget for education. Last year was a little bit less, and the Senate has a committee that's been looking at this particular aspect of the funding formula and trying to provide some tweaks to it. And they should be coming out with a recommendation pretty soon. One of the most important aspects of this educational funding formula that I feel is missing is the fact that we don't have bonuses for those regional school districts. Bristol and Warren had the luxury of having those extra funds at one time, and they used it for good use. Now those are not there, and I think we need to encourage regionalization by providing those incentives to these school districts.
Another question, Mr. Meyers mentioned it briefly, but we can go deeper on this. Mr. Felag, we begin with you. What role should charter schools and or vouchers play in our educational system?
Well, the charter schools have their position, and I believe that the charter schools exist in those urban communities and shouldn't exist in the regional communities. The communities of Bristol and Warren have enough students to provide a full and adequate educational system. By having more chartered schools within our outside districts, it's going to cause a stress on those districts, especially those that have small communities like Tiverton, Warren, and Bristol.
Mr. Meyers?
I believe that all Rhode Islanders have the right to give their kids the best education they can. We have such a huge amount of money dedicated per pupil that why is it that some should have it and some shouldn't? I agree with the inner city people. I mean, they should have the same rights to better schools as some of the suburbs do. And I think charter schools and vouchers, having that money following the student is the best thing. That way the parents can make the best decisions for their kids. And they don't have to worry about being stuck in a school system that's subpar, even worse than what we have in our state right now with 45th in the country.
Thank you. Mr. Meyers, next question with you. Do you support Rhode Island being a sanctuary state?
No. It's not.
Okay, Mr. Felag.
Well, I don't think Rhode Island is a sanctuary state. It's a welcoming state. It's a state that allows all immigrants to come into the state. And from there, we should be able to provide the services that are necessary for them. All four of my grandparents came over from Poland, and there's different reasons why people leave their particular country, and they should be able to reside within our state.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our last question of this session. Begins with Mr. Felag. What is an important issue to you that we have not yet talked about tonight?
Well, obviously, the most important issue to me has always been the budget. I've been a 20-year member of the Finance Committee, and we spend a lot of time fleshing out the governor's proposed budget and coming up with a budget that we feel is conducive for the residents within the state of Rhode Island. The budget is a $13.6 billion operation. $5 billion of it is general revenue expenses, where 60% of that is the income tax, which is a personal income tax, which is about 1.8 billion, and then about 1.5 billion being the sales tax. We try to stress to increase those general revenues so that the state has more money to spend on healthcare, to spend on schools, to spend on its infrastructure. Those are all important aspects. People often say the budget is bloated, but part of that is the fact that we have $5.7 billion in federal aid to the state budget, and we utilize that state aid budget. Another thing that wasn't stated is the fact of the opera funds. We have $1.13 billion in opera funds that we're going to distribute in terms of $250 million for housing, 200 for education, another 200 for healthcare and for infrastructure. And so those are all important aspects that aren't covered in the debate, but are fully vetted out in the Finance Committee.
Mr. Meyers.
I think the most important thing we can do is recover from the pandemic. We have had a number of years now that we have had businesses decimated. We've had kids in schools dealing with things like masks. We have IEPs that are going to go ballistic in the early years of school. We're going to have kids who are all going to be on IEPs for speech therapy. The mask, it is a real issue. But we are, because of our businesses being decimated, our people are used to being home because they're not working. And the fear that people have is you can tell when you're talking to people, they don't see the future as something that they can look forward to. as you go down and walking and knocking on doors to door, the people have fear still about, all they do is all day long is sit down and watch on the TV and media and how terrible everything is. And so when they were basically locked down for 18 months, they sat there and got a steady diet of that. And so we have mental health issues based on that. We have people who have not gone back to work. We have an underground economy, which is not drawing tax money, which is hurting our budget. And until people start getting back to work, businesses start flourishing again, we can bring that tax and sales tax money in to bolster our budget. We're not going to ever recover. That's it.
Thank you. All right, that's the end of our question and answer. We're going to go to closing statements. Mr. Meyers will go first. You have up.
Did you want? I opened.
Yeah, we follow the same order.
Okay.
Go back and forth.
All
That's
right,
why-
great.
That's why I asked that question earlier.
So, Mr. Meyers, you have up to 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters again for sponsoring this, and Senator Felag for your time. I'd like to say that I believe the General Assembly is broken. We have a supermajority in the General Assembly that has very little discussion back and forth between the parties. We have amendments that are pushed forth before the General Assembly, which get almost no time. We have a budget that's really out of control. We have people who are needing help with, especially with the energy situation that's coming up right now this month. They're going to be 50% increase in their bills. We need increases in light heat. We need increases of energy support. But we just don't seem to have that kind of camaraderie and talking back and forth. And until we break that supermajority, it's a one-party rule. We don't have the ability for even the governor veto. We have nothing, whatever imaginations come in the individuals that push forth these bills, they can go as far as they want without any veto, without any discussion, without any amendments, without any substitutes. And it really doesn't make a good situation for us in Rhode Island. Rhode Islanders are the ones who are going to suffer with an agenda that seems to be more activist towards climate change and anti-gun, and our money is not being spent properly. We have the issue with the soccer stadium that is going to come out of our money. We have the tolls that were found unconstitutional, that we spent $170 million building these gantries, and we've already collected $100 million. I wouldn't be surprised if the trucking organizations will be suing for that money back. So constitutional issues are important to us. Both sides are there for a reason. We're there to discuss things, work out things, bargain, discuss, and work out deals that help the better people of the district. And so I think that what we need is a change in our General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Felag.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. You also have up to 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, Scott, yourself, and East Bay Media, and also my opponent, Allyn, for being here for this debate. I think it really highlights the importance of experience in those individuals that, like myself, who go out to the public, meet with the public, and ask for their views. And so I'll be asking for their vote for this election season. I've always gone on the assumption that this is a job that requires a lot of attention. I have a book before me, which I started maybe a couple of years ago, of noting down all the different people who have contacted me over the years and tried to assist them in their particular dilemmas. And we've worked very diligently with those individuals. Also, we've worked on major issues that are important to those residents in the East Bay. I believe it wasn't for me and my colleagues, the bike path bridge would not be moving forward. And those are issues that are important. I'm also addressing an issue in the East Bay of Warren with their draining issues. I've worked with those individuals for the broken bridge. I've worked in Bristol on various issues within Medicum Avenue, the 3 lanes that exist there. And also, more importantly, an individual who had high tension wires that were over his yard. and we were able to get Narragansett Electric and Grid and those individuals together to resolve that particular issue. I've been very vocal in Tiverton during my 20 years there in terms of the contaminated soil, coming to a resolution there and taking the tolls, believe it or not, off the Secundit Bridge and the Mount Hope Bridge. We've made an agreement where 3.5 cents of the gas tax is utilized towards the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority, which amounts to about $15 million a year. So as far as being able and willing to assist our communities, I think I've done that. I've also been recommended and endorsed by various organizations, various middle-class organizations like the police, the fire, and also garnered many legislative grants.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you both. That ends the forum. Appreciate you both the candidates from Senate District 10.